spoke with Hannah Charles, Community Development Officer. We discussed International Day for the Eradication of Poverty and how his ministry supports the Sustainable Development Goals to address this. We will now speak with Mr. Carlton Phipps, Director of Statistics in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, to continue this discussion on this very important topic. Welcome back to GMSKN, Mr. Phipps.
Welcome back, Mr. Phipps.
Hi, good morning to you.
All right, so first question is, how is the Ministry of Sustainable Development observing this year the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty?
Well, to be honest, we're really not doing too much. This year, our activities are somewhat low-key. The fact that we had elections recently and we just have a new permanent secretary stepping into the position. We've been a little bit slow off the bat on this one, but next year, expect something bigger.
So what was done before this new administration?
Well, I would say, because over the last 2 years, basically, we have been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Nothing really has been done.
Okay.
The SDGs, pushing poverty, that is really just coming to the forefront. From statistics point of view, we actually did a country poverty assessment 2018-2019. We were able to reach to the point where we were able to tabulate the results, but then everything was placed on hold because of the pandemic.
Okay.
So we're really just getting back on track with these activities. Yeah.
And those results are obviously important for informing programs and policies, et cetera. So,
certainly.
All right. How is the ministry, to your knowledge, bringing awareness to the public about this year's theme, Dignity for All in Practice?
Yeah. I would say the critical starting point is really from the study that we did in 2019. There's supposed to be an additional part to that where we would understand that the COVID-19 pandemic would have had significant impact on persons' livelihood. Many persons were unemployed. Even up till now, even though some persons are back at work, they're not getting the hours, they're not getting the sort of earnings that they were earning before the pandemic. So in terms of us providing that assessment, additional assessment, I must say, in terms of how things would have changed because of the pandemic, I think that is basically the starting point in terms of getting back on track. Looking at a revision of the policies, the plans, the programs that needs to put in place to ensure that we really move things to the next level, and certainly work on the reduction and hopefully eventually eradication of poverty. So that is the big aim.
The sooner you get back on track, as you put it, the better it would be for everybody.
Yes.
I see that push.
Because I would say we don't want to just start with an impression, or somebody might have an idea the poverty is 10%, 15%.
Yes.
But it's always good to go based on the facts. So that is where we want to start. That wants to be our starting point.
To be data-driven is the best thing, to be honest with you, and I get your point.
Now I'm going to ask a question concerning the census. Now, having the census completed, that would really help us to determine, as you say, we would get the correct numbers as to how many persons are really in poverty. Is the census completed as yet?
No, sorry to say that the census is not yet completed. We were aiming to complete the end of this month, which is a week. Yeah, just about a week away, so we will go over into November a little bit, but really and truly, we are really on the last leg of completing the field activities. So we really want to encourage everyone who has not cooperated already to really give us the information so we can wrap up this part of the process and we can start putting out the data for the consumption of everyone.
Well, I keep seeing your face plastered all across my television, by the way. Census, it's important, so hopefully that's something to help.
Yes,
you get the results that you need. In terms of this year's theme, again, for the observance, Dignity for All in Practice, on an individual level, what does that really mean for the everyday man and woman here in St. Kitts, in your estimation?
And as you mentioned, you had discussion earlier with someone from social services, which they are the implementing agency. So Ministry of Sustainable Development really look at things from a policy perspective, at a more larger overarching perspective. But what I would say is that in terms of looking at the theme for this year, Dignity for All in Practice, meaning that it is more than words. It's not, you want to say, a catch statement, but really in practice, ensuring that based on the information we have on hand, the data we have in hand, that we use that information to really reach out and help those who are in poverty. Well, it would have been a month or so ago, we would have been responsible for the poverty alleviation program. You know, we're assisting persons with the $500 a month who were either unemployed or their income were extremely low. That has now been transferred to social services. But even in that sense, while we were carrying out that program, that there we were reaching to persons more or less on an individual basis, trying to provide that help to those who were really in need.
And bringing dignity with it, of course.
Certainly. I don't think there's anyone can say that their information was leaked or the name was put out there because they're receiving the funds. No, we've been very careful with that.
Good to know.
Yeah.
How often is the country expected to report on sustainable development goals and the data collection process?
Yeah. So there are 17 goals, and I correctly, almost 250 indicators.
Yeah.
We have started an exercise in terms of identifying one, based on those, that information is readily available, so we can start publishing those. Also in terms of looking at those that are in line with our national development plan for St. Kitts and Nevis. Right now, another department, the Department of Economic Affairs, also within the Ministry of Sustainable Development, they're charged with the responsibility of developing a new national development plan. The last one that we had was after sugar, 2006 to 2014. So we are definitely up for a revised national development plan, which would go from 2022 to 2037. I think that's the date that was discussed. So really, this would be the way in terms of charting the way forward. What I'm looking at is that the indicators that we want to compile, we don't want to compile indicators because you say you can compile statistics on this or on that, but you want to focus on those which are key that will promote the sustainable growth of St. Kitts and Nevis, where we're at and where we need to be. That's want to be our focus.
All right. Can you tell us, from your thinking, of course, what some of those indicators would be?
Well, off the top, ending poverty, ending hunger, which we probably, when we speak to hunger, we're speaking more for the person maybe in extreme poverty.
Yeah.
Economic growth and sustainable development, ensuring that from a policy perspective, from government initiatives, that we create job opportunities, because government can't hire everybody, you know. So it is important that government play that role in terms of trying to build this private sector, trying to build entrepreneurship, that persons can find gainful employment. Climate change, as a small island development state, we're very susceptible to natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, etc. So we want to focus a lot on building resilience, having the sort of infrastructure that will not be easily damaged or put us in a position where we can recover a lot easier than in past decades when we are, let's say, impacted by a hurricane.
According to the World Bank, poverty is earning less than $1.90 a day. Is this really the situation for us here in St. Kitts and Nevis? Are there any persons living on and below the poverty line? And how is this determined? Is the census the only way to determine that?
To answer your question, we don't use the census to determine that. We conduct what is called a country poverty assessment, and the last one which we conducted was in 2018, 2019. It's a rather detailed study. We ask households in terms of how much they earn, or they get in gifts from other persons, and then we compare that to what they need to spend in order to have a comfortable life. So it's really an in-depth study. Yes, we do have persons in poverty. From the last study that was done, it was about 17% of adults who are living in poverty. And in terms of extreme poverty, basically not having enough to eat, that was 1%. So in terms of extreme poverty, that is 1% in St. Kitts, and it was 0 in Nevis, but combined, St. Kitts being the larger of the two populations, it averaged out 1% for the Federation. But we'll say in terms of extreme poverty, that is very low, which we're pleased with. In terms of 17% of the population still in poverty, that is relatively high, but I would say an improvement. The two studies that we would have done previously would have been in 1999, where it was, the estimate was 32%. We did another one in 2000, 2007, 2008, and the figure was 24.5% of adults, and now we're down to 17. So we are on a good trajectory, I would say.
We are.
But we still have work to do. As we said, the goal is to eradicate poverty. That means zero poverty.
Yeah, exactly. When I listen to you speak, and you're talking about extreme poverty, as in those who are, if I'm not mistaken, those who can't feed themselves, basically. Right. They're hungry. And that is 1%, but then we still have this categorization of poverty, which is, okay, maybe you can provide, but you're not providing enough, and we get to almost 20% of our population.
Right.
Although we're in a downward trend, it's still somewhat alarming. So your work is very important on that front. All right. In your opinion, in that vein, what more needs to be done for us to reach the goals set out by the UN we signed on to?
Well, it's and here is where we work with closely with the Ministry of Social Development, because from the statistics, Ministry of Sustainable, we are focused on providing the information. What is the situation on the ground? So it's now working with them that we provide them with that information, looking at the particular communities where the poverty level may be extremely high. And they then working with us and working with the, say, donors, providing special financing to really inject certain projects in those various communities so it can lift persons there out of poverty. I must say overall also, in terms of one part of the ministry's responsibility, we're responsible for the distribution of residential and commercial lands. And land is an asset, a very important asset that can help to increase your wealth. Yes, you need money to start, but once you get started, it is something that you can use as collateral to go to the bank to even further advance your well-being. So we think all these things coming together is very important to work towards moving to zero poverty. It's not going to happen overnight because a lot of things need to be done. There may be many issues around why a particular household or a particular person may be in poverty. So to some extent, it has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis, but generally, you want to produce policies, plans, and programs that will touch every community, whether within St. Kitts or Nevis, to really get to that point where we can eliminate poverty.
Just one follow-up question, and it seems very topical now. How much does inflation affect the work that you do and throw your statistics, to the wind, so to speak?
Right. Very good question. And we do, the statistics department, we're also responsible for measuring the price level. So we do monitor in terms of price movement. And we have seen some uptick this year in prices, particularly with food. Food has been up about 10%, based on data up to September of this year. So, food is basic. You must eat.
You must.
I understand some person might set aside the rent until later on, but you have to eat and you can't borrow when you go to the supermarket. So yes, inflation with increase in prices, that are putting even greater burden on households. So we can imagine that more persons will be at risk of falling below the poverty line because their real income really has fallen with a significant increase, for example, in food. So that is indeed a challenge, and I think with that, during the time that we were in charge of the poverty alleviation program, that we would have seen additional persons added to the program because of their circumstances. And also persons who are going to social services and seeking further assistance because of what have started because of matters that have nothing to do with us. We have COVID that started in the outer world. We also have the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. That is creating not just logistical issues, but also increasing prices of fuel and all grain products, because Ukraine was a major producer of grain. So I cannot say it's going to get better right now, but working with my colleagues and working with the various departments within the ministry, we really would be providing government or cabinet with the advice that they may need to introduce some additional measures to really assist persons who are falling in poverty because of these increased prices at this time.